The Book of Enoch, Hanok, Chapter 70. And it came to be after this that his name during his lifetime was raised above to the Ben of Adam, and to Yahuwah Sabaoth, from amongst those who dwell on the earth. And he was raised above on the chariots of the Spirit, and his name vanished among them. And from that day I was no longer numbered amongst them. And he placed me between the two winds, between the north and the west, where the messenger took the cords to measure for me the place for the elect and righteous. And there I saw the first fathers and the righteous who from the beginning dwell in that place. Chapter 71. And it came to be after this that my spirit was translated, and it ascended into the Shemaim. And I saw the Kadosh sons of Elohim. They were stepping on flames of fire. Their garments were white, and their faces shone like snow. And I saw two streams of fire, and the light of that fire shone like jacinth. And I fell on my face before Yahuwah Sabaoth. And the messenger Michael seized me by my right hand, and lifted me up and led me forth into all the secrets. And he showed me all the secrets of righteousness. And he showed me all the secrets of the ends of the Shemaim, and all the chambers of all the stars, and all the lights, where they proceed before the face of the Kodashim. And he translated my spirit into the Shemaim of Shemaim. And I saw there, as it were, a structure built of crystals, and between those crystals tongues of living fire. And my spirit saw the girdle which surrounded that house of fire, and on its four sides were streams full of living fire, and they surrounded that house. And round about were seraphim, cherubim, and ophanim, and these are they who do not sleep, but guard the throne of his esteem. And I saw messengers who could not be counted, 1,000 thousands, and 10,000 times 10,000, encircling that house. And Michael, and Raphael, and Gabriel, and Phanuel, and the Kodesh messengers who are above the Shemaim, go in and out of that house. And they came forth from that house, and Michael, and Gabriel, and Raphael, and Phanuel, and many Kodesh messengers without number. And with them the head of days, his head white and pure as wool, and his garments indescribable. And I fell on my face, and my whole body became relaxed, and my spirit was transfigured. And I cried with a loud voice, with the spirit of power, and Barak and esteemed and exalted. And these barakoth which went forth out of my mouth were well-pleasing before the head of days. And that head of days came with Michael, and Gabriel, and Raphael, and Phanuel, thousands and 10,000s of messengers without number. And he came to me and greeted me with his voice, and said to me, This is the Ben of Adam, who was born unto righteousness, and righteousness abides over him, and the righteousness of the head of days does not forsake him. And he said to me, He proclaims unto you shalom, in the name of the world to come. For from here has proceeded shalom since the creation of the world, and so shall it be unto you forever and forever and ever. And all shall walk in his ways, since righteousness never forsakes him. With him will be their dwelling places, and with him their heritage, and they shall not be separated from him forever and ever and ever. And so there shall be length of days with the Ben of Adam, and the righteous shall have shalom and an upright way in the name of Yahuwah Sabaoth forever and ever. Chapter 72, Astronomy. The book of the courses of the lights of the Shemaim, the relations of each according to their classes, their dominion, and their seasons, according to their names and places of origin, and according to their months, which Uriel, the Kodesh messenger, who was with me, who is their guide, showed me, and he showed me all their laws exactly as they are, and how it is with regard to all the years of the world, and unto everlasting. till the new creation is accomplished, which endures till everlasting. And this is the first law of the lights. The light, the sun, has its rising in the eastern portals of the Shemaim, and its going down in the western portals of the Shemaim. And I saw 6 portals in which the sun rises, and 6 portals in which the sun goes down, and the moon rises and goes down in these portals. And the leaders of the stars and those whom they lead, 6 in the east and 6 in the west, and all following each other in accurately corresponding order. Also many windows to the right and left of these portals. And first there goes forth the great light, named the sun, and his circumference is like the circumference of the Shemaim, and he is quite filled with illuminating and heating fire. The chariot on which it ascends, the wind drives, and the sun goes down from the Shemaim, and returns to the north in order to reach the east, and is so guided that he comes to the portal and shines in the face of the Shemaim. In this way he rises in the first month in the great portal, which is the 4th. And in that 4th portal from which the sun rises in the first month are 12 window openings, from which proceed a flame when they are opened in their season. When the sun rises in the Shemaim, he comes forth through that 4th portal 30 mornings in succession, and goes down exactly in the 4th portal in the west of the Shemaim. And during this period the day becomes daily longer, and the night nightly shorter to the 30th morning. On that day the day is longer than the night by a 9th part, and the day amounts exactly to 10 parts, and the night to 8 parts. And the sun rises from that 4th portal, and goes down in the 4th, and returns to the 5th portal of the east 30 mornings, and rises from it and goes down in the 5th portal. And then the day becomes longer by 2 parts, and amounts to 11 parts, and the night becomes shorter, and amounts to 7 parts. And it returns to the east and enters into the 6th portal, and rises and goes down in the 6th portal 31 mornings on account of its sign. On that day the day becomes longer than the night, and the day becomes double the night, and the day becomes 12 parts, and the night is shortened and becomes 6 parts. And the sun mounts up to make the day shorter and the night longer. And the sun returns to the east and enters into the 6th portal, and rises from it and goes down 30 mornings. And when 30 mornings are accomplished, the day decreases by exactly 1 part, and becomes 11 parts, and the night 7. And the sun goes forth from that 6th portal in the west, and goes to the east, and rises in the 5th portal for 30 mornings, and goes down in the west again in the 5th western portal. On that day the day decreases by 2 parts, and amounts to 10 parts, and the night to 8 parts. And the sun goes forth from that 5th portal, and goes down in the 5th portal of the west, and rises in the 4th portal for 31 mornings on account of its sign, and goes down in the west. On that day the day is equalized with the night, and the night amounts to 9 parts, and the day to 9 parts. And the sun rises from that portal, and goes down in the west, and returns to the east, and rises 30 mornings in the 3rd portal, and goes down in the west in the 3rd portal. And on that day the night becomes longer than the day, and night becomes longer than night, and day shorter than day, till the 30th morning. And the night amounts exactly to 10 parts, and the day to 8 parts. And the sun rises from that 3rd portal, and goes down in the 3rd portal in the west, and returns to the east, and for 30 mornings rises in the 2nd portal in the east, and in the same way goes down in the 2nd portal in the west of the Shemaim. And on that day the night amounts to 11 parts, and the day to 7 parts. And the sun rises on that day from that 2nd portal, and goes down in the west in the 2nd portal, and returns to the east into the 1st portal for 31 mornings, and goes down in the 1st portal in the west of the Shemaim. And on that day the night becomes longer and amounts to the double of the day, and the night amounts exactly to 12 parts, and the day to 6. And the sun has traversed the divisions of its orbit, and turns again on those divisions of its orbit, and enters that portal 30 mornings, and goes down also in the west opposite to it. And on that night the night has decreased in length by a 9th part, and the night has become 11 parts, and the day 7 parts. And the sun has returned and entered into the second portal in the east, and returns on those, its divisions of its orbit, for 30 mornings, rising and going down. And on that day the night decreases in length, and the night amounts to 10 parts, and the day to 8. And on that day the sun rises from that portal, and goes down in the west, and returns to the east, and rises in the third portal for 31 mornings, and goes down in the west of the Shemayim. On that day the night decreases and amounts to 9 parts, and the day to 9 parts, and the night is equal to the day, and the year is exactly as to its days, 364. And the length of the day and of the night, and the shortness of the day and of the night arise. Through the course of the sun they are separated. So it comes that its course becomes daily longer, and its course nightly shorter. And this is the law in the course of the sun, and its return is as often as he returns 60 times, and rises the great light which is named the sun, forever and ever. And that which rises is the great light, and is so named according to its appearance, according as Yahuwah commanded. As he rises, so he goes down, and does not decrease, and does not rest, but runs day and night. And its light is 7-fold brighter than that of the moon, but as regards size, they are both equal. Chapter 73. And after this law I saw another law dealing with the smaller light, which is named the moon. And her circumference is like the circumference of the Shemayim, and her chariot in which she rides is driven by the wind, and light is given to her in measure. And her rising and going down change every month. And her days are like the days of the sun, and when her light is uniform, it amounts to the 7th part of the light of the sun. And thus she rises, and her first phase in the east comes forth on the 30th morning, and on that day she becomes visible, and constitutes for you the first phase of the moon on the 30th day, together with the sun in the portal where the sun rises. And the 1/2 of her goes forth by a 7th part, and her whole circumference is empty without light, with the exception of 1/7 part of it, the 14th part of her light. And when she receives 1/7 part of the half of her light amounts to 1/7 part and the half thereof. And she goes down with the sun, and when the sun rises, the moon rises with him, and receives the half of 1 part of light. And in that night, in the beginning of her morning, in the beginning of the lunar day, the moon goes down with the sun, and is invisible that night with the 14th parts and the half of 1 of them. And she rises on that day with exactly a 7th part, and comes forth and recedes from the rising of the sun. And in her remaining days she becomes bright in the 13th parts. Chapter 74. And I saw another course, a law for her, how according to that law she performs her monthly revolution. And all these Uriel, the Kodesh messenger, who is the leader of them all, showed to me in their positions. And I wrote down their positions as he showed them to me. And I wrote down their months as they were, and the appearance of their lights, till 15 days were accomplished. In single 7th parts she accomplishes all her light in the east, and in single 7th parts accomplishes all her darkness in the west. And in certain months she alters her going down, and in certain months she pursues her own peculiar course. In 2 months the moon goes down with the sun, in those 2 middle portals, the 3rd and the 4th. She goes forth for 7 days, and turns about, and returns again through the portal where the sun rises, and accomplishes all her light, and she recedes from the sun. And in 8 days enters the 6th portal from which the sun goes forth. And when the sun goes forth from the 4th portal, she goes forth 7 days, until she goes forth from the fifth and turns back again in 7 days into the fourth portal and accomplishes all her light. And she recedes and enters in the first portal in 8 days. And she returns again in 7 days into the fourth portal from which the sun goes forth. Thus I saw their position, how the moon rose and the sun went down in those days. And if 5 years are added together, the sun has an access of 30 days, and all the days which increase to it for one of those 5 years, when they are full, they amount to 364 days. And the access of the sun and the stars amounts to 6 days. And 5 years and 6 days every year come to 30 days. And the moon falls behind the sun and stars to the number of 30 days. And the sun and the stars bring in all the years exactly, so that they do not advance or delay their position by a single day unto everlasting, but complete the years with perfect justice in 364 days. In 3 years there are 1,092 days, and in 5 years 1,820 days, so that in 8 years there are 2,912 days. For the moon alone the days amount in 3 years to 1,062 days, and in 5 years she falls 50 days behind. To the sum there is 5 to be added, and 62 days. And in 5 years there are 1,770 days, so that for the moon the days 6 and 8 years amount to 2,832 days. For in 8 years she falls behind to the amount of 80 days. All the 17 days she falls behind in 8 years are 80. And the years accurately completed in conformity with their world stations and the stations of the sun, which rise from the portals through which it rises and goes down, 30 days. Chapter 75. And the leaders of the heads of the thousands, who are placed over the whole creation and over all the stars, have also to do with the 4 intercalary days, being inseparable from their office, according to the reckoning of the year. And these render service on the 4 days which are not reckoned in the reckoning of the year. And owing to them, men go astray therein. For those lights truly render service on the world stations, one in the first portal, one in the third portal, the Shemayim, one in the fourth portal, and one in the sixth portal, and the exactness of the year is accomplished through its separate 364 stations. For the signs and the times and the years and the days the messenger Uriel showed to me, whom Yahuwah of esteem has appointed forever over all the lights of the Shemayim, in the Shemayim and in the world, that they should rule on the face of the Shemayim, and be seen on the earth, and be leaders for the day and the night, the sun, moon, and stars, and all the ministering beings, which make the revolution in all the chariots of the Shemayim. In the same way, 12 doors Uriel showed me. They open in the circumference of the sun's chariot in the Shemayim, through which the rays of the sun break forth, and from them is warmth diffused over the earth, when they are opened at their appointed times. And for the winds and the spirit of the dew, when they are opened, standing open in the Shemayim at the ends. As for the 12 portals on the Shemayim, at the ends of the earth, out of which go forth the sun, moon, and stars, and all the works of the Shemayim in the east and in the west. There are many windows open to the left and right of them, and one window at its appointed time produces warmth corresponding to those doors from which the stars come forth, according as he has commanded them, and wherein they are placed corresponding to their number. And I saw chariots in the Shemayim running in the world, above those portals in which revolve the stars that never go down. And one is larger than all the rest, and it is that which makes its course through the entire world.